Welcome back to In Need of a Refill, where God's Word and the coffee are never in short supply. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss anything that's coming up on In Need of a Refill. If you have a comment or a question or passage you'd like me to look at, leave it in the section below. We'll get to it just as fast as we can. So when we last left Samson, he had this plot. He had this plan for vengeance against the Philistines because they burned his father-in-law and his former wife that was given away to death along with their house. That was in retribution to Samson burning their wheat fields with foxes that had torches in between two tails. And it goes on from there. So when we open up this week, here is verses 9 and 10 for Judges 15. Then the Philistines went up and camped in Judah and spread out in Lehi. The men of Judah said, "Why have you come up against us?" And they said, "We have come up to bind Samson in order to do to him as he did to us." Same issue. You got that cycle going on. He hit me, so I'm going to hit him back kind of thing. Well, see, instead of only dealing with Samson, these Philistines have an army. And they are camped out. They look like they are ready to go to war. You either give us Samson or you got problems. At the very least, though, they are planning to hunt Samson down. So it is very much a posturing of sorts. Give us Samson or else. The people of Judah, they don't seem to know anything about what Samson's done. Whether Samson has been protecting them, so to speak, or what, they don't have a clue. So let's see what happens. Verses 11 through 13. Then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of the rock of Etam and said to Samson, "Do you not know that the Philistines are rulers over us? What then is this that you have done to us?" And he said to them, "As they did to me, so I have done to them." They said to him, "We have come down to bind you, so that we may give you into the hands of the Philistines." And Samson said to them, "Swear to me that you will not kill me." So they said to him, "No, but we will bind you fast and give you into their hands, yet surely we will not kill you." Then they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. It looks like Samson is in the low hill country in Judah. So when they get these 3,000 men and they go and they have resigned themselves to being ruled by the Philistines, they go to do the bidding of the Philistines. These men of Judah do not seem to want to challenge the Philistines at all. Maybe they're terrified of them. Who knows? But either way we go, there's no record of them crying out to Yahweh for help. There's not. They've just kind of submitted and give themselves over to a new ruler. They seem to be more concerned with keeping the status quo. If we give them Samson, they'll leave us alone. Samson, on the other hand, is not concerned with the status quo. He's simply concerned with revenge. That's what his goal is. He wants revenge. You see, in all of these exchanges, there is no mention of anyone, men of Judah or Samson himself, seeking God's counsel until you get to verse 18, after the slaughter. That's it. I mean, up until then, we're going to do what's best for us. I'm going to do what I want to do. Now, maybe they did seek God's counsel. There's no record, which probably means the answer is no, they didn't. You see, they bind Samson and they take him to the Philistines. Here, have our countrymen take him, leave us alone. So let's see what happens. Verses 14 through 17. When he came to Lehi, the Philistines shouted as they met him, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, so that the ropes that were on his arms were as flax that is burned with fire, and his bonds dropped from his hands. He found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, so he reached out and took it, and killed 1,000 men with it. Then Samson said, with the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of a donkey, I have killed 1,000 men. When he had finished speaking, he threw the jawbone from his hand, and he named the place Ramath Lehi. The Philistines think they won. I mean, really, why not? The guy you're asking for is tied up, obviously he can't hurt you. Well, yeah, they did not consider Samson. All the trouble he had caused beforehand, they did not consider his strength. They clearly didn't consider YaHWeH, but neither the Philistines nor Samson seem to realize that YaHWeH is the one that's fighting the battles. I have done this. Look at me. Or we will take Samson and we will win. Neither side seems to even give a second thought to the fact that God is the one that is fighting this battle. All of these battles. Samson's just the conduit that he is using. Now, Samson has this thirst for vengeance. Thirst for revenge. And he is clearly, not doing what the Lord wants as far as vengeance is mine. I will repay. That was in the old law prior to Samson. See Deuteronomy. But the Lord is using this thirst for vengeance, Samson's uncontrolled anger, to accomplish what the Lord wants to accomplish. Samson finds this fresh jawbone. He reaches out, takes it, and he kills 1,000 men with a jawbone. That must have been a sight. It really must have been. God was doing some amazing things with Samson. But the problem is that Samson is taking all the credit. All the credit for what has been done. I did this. Look what I did with the jawbone of a donkey. Oh man, I'm awesome. It's him, and him. Talk about arrogance. He doesn't even take the time to consider the Lord. How many times do we do that, brethren? How many times do we take credit for the things that are being done when, quite frankly, the credit does not belong to us? God is using us. God has given us the talent, the ability to do something. The credit is His, not ours. How many times do we pull a Samson? Look what I just did. I fear the answer to that is far too many. Far too many. Let's keep reading. Verses 18 through 20. Then he became very thirsty, and he called to the Lord and said, You have given this great deliverance by the hand of your servant, and now shall I die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised? But God split the hollow place that is in Lehi, so that water came out of it. When he drank, his strength returned, and he revived. Therefore he named it En Hakor, which is in Lehi to this day. And he judged Israel 20 years in the days of the Philistines. Only when he needed something. Only when he gets thirsty does Samson even bother to utter the name of Yahweh. Only then. And then it's kind of an accusatory, you've given me this credit, but now you're just going to let me die? Kind of thing, please. How many times do we do that? God, I don't need you. I'll call you when I want you. Yeah, that don't work. That don't fly. That's not the way that it should be, Christians. That's not the way it should be. Far too often, that is the way it is. We need to stop that. We need to realize where our blessings are coming from. See, Samson attempts this guilt trip. And God has just given him this amazing victory. What's the next thing he does? Samson does? Attempt a guilt trip. Yeah, that's a good moral standard there, buddy. That's a good role model there. And yet, how many times do we fall victim to the same thing? Or, if not a guilt trip, we fall victim to whining or complaining when God had just given us what we needed or what we asked for. You see, Yahweh, to Samson, he's just common. He's not the creator, or at least if he is, Samson doesn't treat him as such. He's not unique. He's just the God next door, so to speak. And Samson has made Yahweh common in his life. We cannot do that. We should not do that. Do not follow suit with Samson here. God is far more powerful, far more holy, far more everything than we can even ask or imagine. He is not common. He is not an ATM. He does not owe us anything. It's time we've stopped acting like he does. Don't pull a Samson here. Now notice what Samson does here. He actually names the spring, and there is a big difference in the way he names this spring versus the way that say Jacob named one of his springs. Samson names it the equivalent of the spring of him who called. The spring of Samson, basically. Jacob, on the other hand, Jacob names the altars and names the items after Yahweh, after the things that Yahweh does, after the blessings Yahweh gives. There's a huge difference between these two men. One thinks he's the end all and be all. The other knew that Yahweh was the source. Consider 1 Corinthians 4, 6 and 7. Now these things, brethren, I have figuratively applied to myself and Apollos for your sakes, so that in us you may learn not to exceed what is written, so that no one of you will become arrogant in behalf of one against the other. For who regards you as superior? What do you have that you did not receive? And if you did receive it, why do you boast as though you had not received it? That's a question we need to answer as well. What do we have that we did not receive? The answer to that is absolutely nothing. Why are we boasting? The only reason we should be boasting, Christians, is in the Lord. What do we have that we did not receive? Why are we boasting as though we did not receive it? We did receive it. Boast in the one who gave it. Boast in the Lord. As we get ready to close today, I have a few questions for us to consider and hopefully help us to improve our walk with God. Do we let our anger dictate our behavior? Do we seek to ask God for help and deliverance? Do we resign ourselves to the way life is around us? See, that doesn't make sense. Not really. I mean, and many of us do it. You know, we've got it so good, Christians. We've got it so good. We've got an eternity waiting on us. We've got a God that loves us, that redeemed us. Why are we resigning ourselves, pitying ourselves for the way things are going in this world today? Let's focus on God. Let's focus on His mission. Let's let Him use us. Let's find joy in Him. There's no need to resign ourselves to mediocrity, to resign ourselves to the sin that is around us. Our God is bigger and more powerful than the one that is causing all this trouble in this world. Why are we resigning ourselves to let Satan win? He's already lost. Do we take credit for the things that God has done? Thank you for our time together today. Have a blessed week. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss anything that's coming up on In Need of a Refill. And remember, if you're ever in need of a refill on God's Word, all we have to do is take it off our shelves. Spend some time with Him. We won't regret it. Have a blessed week.